All right.
It's the Bober and Handley Pro Football Podcast. Nick Handley here, Chris Bober, the pro, as we are in week number 2 of the NFL. I got the Callaway hat on, though, today, Bober, because we got the U.S. Open going on, too. Who knew? A U.S. Open in the fall. So, there's a little something like that right there.
We went from having no sports for a few months, and now like every sport possible is being played. We got hockey, we got basketball, football, baseball, golf, horse racing. I mean, it's overload right now. We are definitely on overload.
So we got Bengals Browns tonight. We're going to get to all of that. But as we get to a Thursday, we've got, of course, a bunch of headlines going on. I got to start with where I'm at as a fan of the Chicago Bears. This Allen Robinson thing was making me a little bit nervous because he's the most productive receiver for the Chicago Bears. He's like a model citizen, too. This is like the undiva when you think of wide receivers. So hearing that it was rumored he asked for a trade, and you've got a couple of guys on the team that are saying extend AR. It's become public now. He spoke in the press conference yesterday saying that, hey, you know what? I want to be here. I like Chicago. He expects to finish the season at the very least in Chicago. He's got 1 year left on his deal. The Bears could always franchise tag him the following year too. But when you kind of hear these, and he removed all of the Bears mentions from all his social media. So basically scrubbed his social media of anything Chicago Bears. Is it just kind of fascinating where these negotiating tactics sort of come into play?
Yeah, and when I played, the social media wasn't the issue. But I've seen guys do stuff like that, make obscure comments, have their agents release headlines about them. And ultimately what it comes down to, and I can tell you from a player's perspective, is different than what the fans think, right? Mm-hmm. Fans are like offended, like, oh my God, he should be lucky that he's doing this for a living and all this stuff. But I can tell you his buddies on the team, as long as it doesn't become a distraction and he doesn't carry it over to like practice or games, guys want to see their teammates get paid, right? This is a business for these guys. It's a very hard to get normal people to understand what it's like to have sports be your business. And you have a very short window in your life where you can make life-changing money at a profession where you're one of the best in the world at what you do. These guys worked hard. I worked hard to be one of the best in the world at what I did. And as someday they're going to experience a career termination, and they're going to say, guess what? You don't get to play football anymore.
Yeah.
So you got to maximize what you're getting without – you got to be careful not to do it in a manner that takes away from your image, really, or your ability to make more money. So I think it's just a little bit of a statement. He's a kind of a quiet guy. He's not an out there guy. That's his way of making a statement rather than, doing like that safety from was it Cam Chancellor that flipped off the he's not going to do anything like that.
No.
The biggest thing he's doing is taking the Bears off his social media. And I think from here on out, he's just going to play football and see where it lands.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, Bober, because it seems to be working because from what I've gathered, a lot of the fans are on his side. They're saying, well, why the heck wouldn't you extend him? The bottom line is, though, we don't know what he's asking. He might be saying, I deserve to be the highest paid wide receiver in the game. And yet the Bears are saying, well, basically, I think he wants X. The Bears are saying, we'll give you Y, and they need to find that middle ground. So in a way, I feel like his sort of subtle public, cry for help, if you will, is kind of working because I've heard a lot of the fans are kind of coming to his defense saying, hey, we need this guy. We got this garbage quarterback, so we need this guy. And I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I think it's a lot of showmanship. I don't think he really wants out, but I think it is a very interesting way to sort of get the public behind you.
Well, and they're also focusing. They got 2 quarterbacks. One's a first-round draft pick, and one's a guy that paid a lot of money to, and they got to figure that out first. But I don't know. If I have those kind of quarterbacks, I'd want to have better receivers around them to make them better. So I think it'll work out for them.
I do too. Also, we want to get to, well, first of all, some good news from the Thursday night game last week, and I'm assuming we'll get more numbers as they come through over the weekend, but the report is in from the Thursday night game. No positive tests on COVID-19 between the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, as we kind of let the momentum take us into another week, we're thinking fantasy football, we're thinking about point spreads and everything. Knowing that is always going to be looming, that is a great thing to be able to talk about.
Yeah, I think the NFL has done a model job of protecting their players. I mean, you see the coaches like Andy Reid wearing his face mask, and people don't realize he did that all the time during training camp. You know what I mean? Players are very conscious of this. This is how they make their living. And they know that this product needs to be on the field to do it. So the NFL's done great with it. I hope we continue to get good results. I don't expect it to always be zero or always be perfect, but the NFL's working hard to put football on the field because that's how they need to make their money.
Yeah. The other thing that we're kind of waiting to see again this week, and we didn't talk a lot about this, but so the Brees versus Brady matchup, the result obviously favored Drew Brees, but Tom Brady, depending on who you ask, either had a really good game and just had some mishaps, or people thought he looked a little rusty, didn't have the arm strength that Bruce Arians was saying all throughout training camp that his arm strength looks better. So as they move forward, they take on Carolina this weekend. The big question is, what do we expect out of Tom Brady? He's got weapons, but what do we expect out of just Tom Brady, the quarterback now in this new system, but another year older?
And one of the reasons why I wasn't really high on Brady going over to Tampa is, I read Tom Brady's book. It's fabulous. It's a genius study of how to be successful at something. And he flat out said, the reason I'm considered one of the greatest of all time is because I've done it longer than anyone else, right? Talent-wise, he's very average. Honestly, he just has done it longer, and one of the ways he's been able to do it longer is he stacks the deck so that he doesn't have any unexpected surprises, right? He works so hard in the offseason getting his body ready, so he's physically able to last longer. He works so hard leading his teammates through OTAs and mini camps and offseason, and he puts everything out there, and he is a true leader of men in the huddle, on the field, in the meeting room. And the thing that really stuck out to me, not only is he 43, we had the same rookie year, by the way. He's 43 physically, so that's hard. But he doesn't have the advantage of all of the hard work and time put into the offseason. And I think that's his biggest detraction this year. He doesn't have the connection with you saw him overthrow Mike Evans, who apparently stopped. And that's something that he never did with Julian Edelman or Gronkowski when they had the offseason time to put in. I don't know how he's going to be able to catch up with that because he's behind now. The rest of the league's going to keep going forward, and he's going to continue to play catch up. Now, I actually like the parts that Tampa has. I think they put together a fabulous team. I like their running game. I like their defense. I like their weapons. Honestly, Tom Brady is one of the weak links there and it's not because he's not as good. It's just what he brings to the table can't be brought to the table because he hasn't been able to put the work in. And I think that's going to be frustrating for him. And you saw some of that come out in that game. And I think you're going to see it. I mean, he's a pro. He's going to do some things. It's just, do you think he's going to be able to beat the really good teams? I find that hard to believe.
Well, and a little bit off to the side of that, the Patriot system, the one thing, even if they didn't have a bevy of talent around him, just that entire system, they were basically playing mistake-free football. It's one of those things you could always expect out of the Patriots, and the amount of mistakes, the penalties, the pre-snap penalties that you saw with the Buccaneers, which I get it, it's the first week. It just seems like that's not something that Tom Brady is accustomed to. And I don't know how that affects him overall in the quarterback position, especially as he's still, as you kind of mentioned, still kind of getting used to all of these guys with that truncated schedule.
Yeah, and go talk to guys like Danny Woodhead that have played with him. And Tom Brady he got after guys. He was a hard taskmaster. And that's not going to work in this situation because he hasn't had the time to put in with those guys. He's kind of like a grumpy old man out there, yelling and screaming. I don't know if that works down here. It's a little bit different down there, and it just seems like they're behind the eight ball. I know they got talent. They're going to win some games. I just don't think that they can beat the New Orleans or the Seattles in the NFC. I think it's going to be really hard for them to be competitive on the biggest stage.
Let me ask you, when you were playing either college ball or pro ball, did anybody ever sport a tattoo that just got absolutely ridiculed for it?
Yes. Jared Allen got a tattoo. Let's not say where it was, but it says the buck stops here. And he comes up and he says, "Hey, Boober, I have either the best or the worst tattoo ever." And that was just his personality. So you got to love it. And the guy's up for the Hall of Fame right now. Tremendous player, tremendous human being, crazy, crazy guy. But, yeah, tattoos are permanent. Zeke, the feed me one, I didn't know.
On his tummy, on his belly. I'm not a big belly button tattoo fan to begin with, but if you're going to have one, I usually think you're a female. But it's Zeke. He always shows off the stomach with the jersey. Maybe this works for him. I don't know.
Here it is right here. I pulled it up on the screen. If you're listening to this, you can't see this. If you're watching it on YouTube, which we plan to put it on there, There it is. It says, "Feed me." And I thought there was a uniform thing about you can't have skin showing or something, but I don't know if
Yeah.
he's paying fines on it. It's just interesting how that came out. But Feed Me is pretty funny.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, there's certain guys that can pull certain things off. Maybe this works for him. So,
Well, if I had abs like that, I'd probably have a tattoo of my abs too. But
well, yeah. I mean,
I'm not doing that.
more opportunity to bring attention to it. I get it. I understand that. I do want to get into, and we talked a little bit about this before too, but just the Patrick Mahomes we saw week one, we saw how effective he was. We were all really curious to see how all of these quarterbacks, I think, would play, whether they've been familiar with the system or not, just because of the unusual offseason that everyone has had. The addition to Clyde Edwards-Helaire and seeing the emergence of Sammy Watkins, we know that obviously Tyreek Hill is going to be a stud. It always is a stud. But just Patrick Mahomes, I mean, is now that we've kind of seen week one, do you feel like there is even more separation between who Patrick Mahomes is and then who like the next group is? And I know Lamar Jackson had a good game against the Browns, but it was the Browns. Deshaun Watson going head to head with Patrick Mahomes, I think there still showed like there is a pretty significant gap. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'd probably put him and maybe Russell Wilson up there with him,
Yeah.
just because of his mastery of what he does right now. Mahomes, it was scary about Mahomes and even Russell Wilson in a sense, is that they continue to experience high level success and they've handled it so well. They're just great leaders. They don't get a big head. They don't slack off. They work harder than ever, and it's showing up on the field. And they're both surrounded by some pretty good talent, which definitely helps. They have great coaches, which definitely helps. But I think those two are leading the pack. Close behind, behind them, you got the Watsons. The Rodgers is probably still up there.
Mm-hmm.
Kyler Murray's coming on. Lamar Jackson, if he ever learns how to win in the fourth quarter by passing the ball. But there's great quarterback play out there right now. Mahomes and kind of Russell Wilson are my house. They're the kind of leaders right now, as far as I see.
So as we kind of now move into week two and we kick off the battle for the state of Ohio, and this is kind of these are the Thursday night games, Bober, that I said during when the pandemic began. I said I will never complain about a bad Thursday night football game ever again because we were so thirsty for sports and we didn't care how we saw it. So I'm trying to remain on point when it comes to that and remain true to what I said. I will still watch it. I'll still be excited. But the Browns, as intriguing as they are, and there's a lot of personalities there, I just don't believe in them. I really don't. And the Bengals, I think, could eventually get there in the next couple of years. I thought Joe Burrow had a decent debut. It did a lot of nice things. They still lost, as we expected them to. But this game is just so fascinating because when you do look at the way the Browns are constructed and the amounts of optimism that was around that camp a year ago, and now everybody's back into okay, I'll believe it when I see it. And the Bengals are just kind of like, all right, let's see how this thing goes with the new quarterback. I even as bad as I think these teams are, I think it is intriguing enough to kind of watch them because there's just so many personalities on both sides of this.
Yeah, and it's amazing that the Battle of the Orange teams in Ohio get this much publicity because they continue to disappoint. I mean, I feel bad for the fan bases. Cincinnati has forever just kind of been close, then fallen off. They kind of came back close, then kind of fallen off. Get the number one pick. I'm excited. Actually, the one reason why I want to watch this game tonight is to see Joe Burrow. I want to see him play against NFL competition. The little bit I saw last week on the Red Zone, he looked good. He looks like he fits. He's still young. He's going to make mistakes. On the other side, you got this roaming band of misfits in Cleveland that has so much talent at so many positions, but they just cannot put it together.
Yeah.
I mean, at what point does one of the coaches stick to something or the organization stick to a coach long enough that they can actually progress, right? And you can get on Mayfield all you want, who kind of is a talking pretender out there in a lot of ways, but he has had 4 different coordinators in 4 years. So I think it's at least going to be entertaining. If this is week 13, I don't think I'm watching this game, but week 2 and it's NFL football, it's definitely going to be on in my house.
Yeah, the Mayfield thing, I know in the offseason he said he was going to do a lot less talking and just more kind of focusing in on everything that he needs to do to get better. That didn't show up last week against the Ravens, but it was the Ravens. I'm not quick to close the book on him for 2020 yet, but I think everybody appreciates him saying that he's going to be a little bit more subdued. He's not going to be a big talker as much, at least in public. And I think that's all fine and well, but I think that's also part of who Baker Mayfield is. He's just a highly emotional person. And with that comes a lot of positives, but also comes a lot of negatives. If he can find that middle ground, I think is what everybody wants to see. So he hasn't said a lot in the media here in the past month or so, but the play on Sunday wasn't good. So I think if he needs to talk a little bit more to get him more revved up, I'm sure Browns fans would take that.
Yeah, and as one of the phenomenons we're going to see, and I know we're going to start jumping into these betting lines, which is going to be fun. But there seems to be an overreaction after week one, right? Whether if
Right.
you do great, if you're 1-0, the whole world's like, oh my gosh, we're going to win the Super Bowl, and if you go 0-1, the whole world's thinking that you're going to go 0-16. And I know we'll look at this in the betting lines about being very careful about that, but it is something to be said about not wanting to go 0-2. I mean, going 0-2, if you look at statistic-wise, I mean, your chances of going to the playoffs is way down. Your chances of winning the Super Bowl is way down. And while the games at the end of the season mean probably more, it's amazing how statistic-wise the best teams win early. And they don't have to win all of them, but they win early. And you got this game tonight. We got Cincinnati and Cleveland, and one of these teams has to win and one has to lose. I mean, it would probably be fitting if they tied, but but so one of these teams is going to go 0-2, and it's going to be a lot of pressure. The other one's going to go to 1-1. It's going to fight off the demons for one more week at least. So that's definitely something to look forward to all across the league is who's going to try to avoid 0-2.
The big game this week, and I know there's a couple intriguing ones. I'm sort of zeroing in on a couple between. Look, I think that what the Steelers showed defensively was very impressive against the Giants. I think the Broncos, if they are going to beat anybody, it's going to be their defense trying to keep them in a game, and they're doing so without Von Miller right now, which is not easy. I thought defensively they played okay in that game, though. Now, those two teams square off. Rams Eagles, that to me is intriguing too because the Eagles just looked awful. And you and I talked about this. You mentioned, how decimated that offensive line was for Philadelphia and a lot of criticism coming Carson Wentz's way. They're going to be a fired up group, and there still is some talent there. In the Rams, I think a lot of people, myself included, were kind of doubting them when it comes to the NFC West, thinking that maybe they were on more of the downhill with the Niners and the Seahawks more on an upward trend. I thought what the Rams at least showed against the Cowboys, which is another talented team, I thought that at least served some notice. And you're right, this kind of goes back to that week one reactions, whether they're overreactions or they're a little bit more moderate reactions. I don't know. I don't want to say the Rams are right in it in the NFC West, but I thought they showed a lot.
Well, look at the line of this game. It's kind of interesting as we focus in on that. It went from Philly was laying 4.5 points, and now it's gone to a pick'em game.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I don't know where this lands because you got 1-0 versus zone one, which is hard to ever put money on. I think most people would agree with that. But Philadelphia was missing three of their starting linemen, and they got to go against Aaron Donald, right? You want to have your full roster of hosses up front against Aaron Donald who can decimate you. And Philly is down everywhere. So they fell. That was a big line to move. It went back to basically a 1-1 game. And Philadelphia might still be in the pick'ems category because they're at home. That's about it for there. Other than that, the Rams match up with them better everywhere.
The two best 0-1 teams that face off this week, and I think you got to look at the Vikings and the Colts. I was shocked with the Colts loss. Not so much with the Vikings. The Vikings played a good Packers team, but those two teams going head-to-head, I thought Phillip Rivers would be sort of the answer, at least for the short term for Indianapolis while they find their next Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning type guy. They are a 3-point favorite in this game. The Vikings, this kind of goes back to what you said earlier. You're in desperation mode already in week 2 because you just do not want to fall 0-2, and the stats would tell you why. So I think that is a game to really focus in on because I think those are two very good teams. Two teams at the very least I think a lot of people had in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you're looking at that. Indy's laying 3, and most of the money's on Minnesota.
Mhm.
But the thing about Minnesota is they don't have anyone in their defensive backfield. They got rammed through by Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, who everyone knew was getting the ball. And if you look at what Indianapolis can do, with Paris Campbell, with I think T.Y. Hilton's still out, but they got those tight ends. They got Himes, who can actually is a pretty good
Yeah.
running back. I think they're not like their linemen should start coming back soon. So I mean that's an instance where the money's moving over on Minnesota, and it hasn't moved the line, but Indianapolis is still a tough out. And they still got Phillip Rivers, who is very dangerous.
The Texans-Ravens. So the Ravens looked as good as advertised. They did so against Cleveland, whether that's more of an indictment of who the Ravens are or who the Browns are, or maybe a little bit of both. We'll see. And the Texans, we were highly critical of the way that game was called, the fact that, yes, we saw how important DeAndre Hopkins is, but it's almost like that absence has now kind of freaked out Bill O'Brien, because you've got these speedsters, you've got Will Fuller, you've got Randall Cobb, you've got Kenny Stills, but yeah, they didn't really use a lot of those guys. Like the fact that they do have a couple of running backs, the brothers Johnson, if you will. You've got Duke Johnson, and of course they were able to acquire David Johnson. So is Houston just ripe for a bounce back, or are we going to see a little bit more of this offense struggling?
Well, I think they're going to start figuring things out there, right? The line on this is 7, right? And that's a tough line. It's hard to say a touchdown on guys. And this is a 1-0 versus 0-1. I'd probably lean more towards Houston in this one, at least covering. But Baltimore's a popular pick. And the thing about Baltimore is they're like the Chiefs, right? If they keep on playing the way they're playing, they do beat teams by 10, 12, 14 points. It's tough to put money on them, but they are dominant as they do this. And I feel like they match up so well against Houston that the only way Houston wins is if they could somehow limit Baltimore's possessions, and they might be able to do that with David Johnson in there. But their O-line's banged up, and without a number one receiver, it's hard to see them converting a lot of third downs, especially in the red zone. And Baltimore's just got so many things going. I mean, I like Baltimore to win this game. I don't know if I put money on them winning by 7, because Houston, this is still a team that's been to the playoffs a lot, and they have a lot of talent there. They just aren't quite as good as at right now as they were last year going to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm curious if that's kind of the next phase for Houston, is being able to find the ideal fit in that head coaching position, whether it's a coach/GM like O'Brien is, or they're just looking for a coach and then a separate GM, because you got Deshaun Watson, you decided to pay him, which I think all of us would agree is the right move. Now it's time to get somebody that can make all of those pieces work. And maybe Bill O'Brien will eventually do that. Maybe this is still an adjustment for him, but the way that game was called, and just seeing the very little use of not a DeAndre Hopkins, but guys that do have speed. And you would think with Deshaun Watson's ability to extend plays that speed would be even more valuable. It was just absent. And maybe you could tip your cap to the Chiefs defense on that too. But I'm just curious about the future of the Houston Texans. And I don't like already thinking about that in week 2.
Yeah, I think they're going to be – I mean, with Deshaun Watson, they're going to have a decade worth of great play at quarterback. But I think if you want that guy to be successful, give him a target losing Hopkins was huge. They need another guy like that, because you're wasting your talent if your opportunity with Watson if you don't have that big-time receiver. He needs that. Maybe it's a tight end. Maybe it's – I don't know. Get him someone who he can lean on, and then his confidence comes back and he starts making plays.
We take a look at your old team and the team that I root for, the Bears and the Giants. The Bears somehow are a 5.5-point favorite. Like, I think the Bears can win this game. I don't know if they cover 5.5. Hell, it's tough for them to score 10 points. So this might be the pillow fight of the weekend. It really could be.
Well, this is definitely an overreaction. It's very hard to bet the favorite in 0-1 versus 1-0, right?
Right.
Because the Bears aren't quite as good as their 1-0 record says. They deserve to win that game. Don't get me wrong. Could have easily lost, but they're not exactly pillars of the monsters of the Midway anymore.
No.
And the Giants, they're breaking in 3 new linemen. Saquon Barkley almost had negative yards last week, but they're better than they showed last week. It was the worst possible matchup you could ever get trying to have a new head coach going against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That defense, it was brutal. And
Yeah.
I think they're going to do it to a lot of people. So I don't think the Giants are unique like that. I don't know if the Giants win this game, but I think the Giants can cover this. I don't know if I'd bet it, but I'd lean more towards the Giants. The line hasn't moved very much because these teams are who we thought they are. It's kind of even money across the board. But, I'm always going to root for my Giants. You're going to root for your Bears. So it's kind of a Bober Handley grudge match here.
It is. It's the grudge match. I'm going to
yeah,
take the Bears to win straight up. I just don't think they cover.
Yeah. So I would lean towards the Giants covering the points. I don't know if they're going to win. They haven't found a way to win yet, just because they're learning that. So
Falcons, Cowboys. I said Falcons. Falcons, Cowboys, both 0-1 teams. I think these are, again, look at the record. All 0-1 teams are not created equal. I still believe the Cowboys have talent. I think the coaching change will work, but we just don't know. I mean, I like the Cowboys covering 4 points in this one. I think that should be very doable, but just when you think that the Cowboys are going to zig, they zag. So right now on this Thursday, I'm saying, yeah, I like the Cowboys and the 4 points, but it is Dallas, and they have been known to kind of go the other way when we think they're about ready to sort of break through.
And this is like the overhyped bowl, right? You got Dallas, who's always overhyped, maybe because of their brand, but with their talent, they should definitely produce more wins. And in Atlanta, who, gosh, they laid an egg last week. I mean, Seattle's very good, but at home, Seattle flew across the country and beat them out there and beat the heck out of them. The only thing I'd figure here is if you have any fantasy players on Atlanta, always play them, because they have a lot. They always get behind. They have a lot of garbage time, and Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Ridley and them, they're going to have a lot of points because Dallas's defense is not in sync just yet. They might get a lead, but I'd stay away from this too, because I don't have a beat on either of these teams. Atlanta was predicted to be way better this year, but I don't know. Dallas is just an enigma. I don't know what I'm getting with them.
Just don't play the defense if you have Atlanta's defense. That would be a very bad pickup in fantasy.
They never have a defense. I don't know what it is. They never have defense.
Not in a while, anyway. The Lions and the Packers. The Packers, I think, look very good. Aaron Rodgers looks like he is a highly motivated quarterback, and that could be very dangerous for a lot of people. The Lions, Bober, I love Matthew Stafford. I think Matthew Stafford has been the one thing that you could always sort of hang your hat on. And if you have hope in Detroit, Matthew Stafford tends to make the one mistake at the inopportune time. And that's just kind of who Matthew Stafford is. I just feel like they're already looking for the next coach. Matt Patricia, the defense is bad. Their secondary is completely banged up. This is a 6-point Green Bay line. It's at home, and I get it. The home field advantage isn't the same thing as it typically is. But I just can't imagine Aaron Rodgers not throwing for less than 300 yards against the Lions and being able to just decimate them. I mean, they were awful in the fourth quarter against Mitchell Trubisky. Mind you, they might have been playing a different scheme, but they go from zone to man-to-man. I don't know what Matt Patricia is doing there. I don't know if the Lions have any confidence. I think Aaron Rodgers just absolutely pulverizes this team.
Yeah, it's hard to bet a 6-point line. 0-1, 1-0. That's what we're talking about, and all the money is on Green Bay, and it very well could be. But I know that's because there's a lot of very loyal Green Bay fans all over the world, really. But yeah, I mean, I would actually think Detroit holds this. NFL games typically don't get blowouts, and I wouldn't count on Green Bay blowing someone out twice. It just doesn't happen. There's like the law of averages in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I would actually lean towards Detroit with the points, but I think Green Bay does beat them. Maybe Stafford comes back and throws a touchdown or two at the end and makes it a game. But this is a division rivalry. Aaron Rodgers does look good, but until someone stops him, I stay away from that because I don't. All right. I don't think I can rely on him doing that every week, but the Detroit Lions, they know him well too.
The Bills, Dolphins, probably don't need to spend much time on this. I love the Bills, though. I said it our very first show. I am all in on the Bills in the AFC East. I think they could be a very stubborn opponent for anybody in the playoffs. The Dolphins are kind of what we thought they were. Buffalo's on the road in Miami. There's the heat that you got to get used to and whatnot. As far as I think Miami will actually have some fans there, but probably no more than what they're used to in a regular year. 5.5 points is what Buffalo is favored by. Again, I get it. The number is maybe starting to creep up a bit.
It went from 3
I
to 6.
yeah, I like Buffalo. I just do, and I think this is a good matchup for them.
Yeah, I think definitely Buffalo definitely wins it. I stay away from this. Another 1-0, 0-1. I don't think I'd take those kind of points because Miami's got some saltiness to them.
Yeah.
I think Miami's is moving towards it. I don't know where they are with quarterback, but Forrest does a good job. And again, a division game, which are historically close games. But Buffalo, if they can figure out a way to get Josh Allen to stop fumbling the ball, they would really beat up on people.
Yeah.
He's kind of the only thing holding them back right now. So as soon as he figures that out, they're going to be tough.
Can I interest you in taking San Francisco and the touchdown against, let's face it, the worst team right now in the New York Jets? The Jets are terrible. I thought that was the Jaguars, but then they go and win a game last week. The New York Jets, I don't know how anybody could take them. I get it, a touchdown, as you pointed out, a touchdown, and a lot of weird things happened last week, but I think the Niners are pissed that they lost to the Cardinals. I think that is such a very good team that Shanahan still has over there. And I just think the Jets are garbage. I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but I think they're garbage. So I would have no problem taking the Niners in the touchdown, laying the touchdown.
Yeah, I think the thing that scares me is how much his lines moved. It's moved 3 points. You think the Jets at home, a cross-country flight is there, but San Francisco's, I think that they're ready for a bounce back, and the Jets are the perfect bounce back opponents. Yeah. I don't know if I put money on it, but 7 sounds about right. You know what I mean? It's just a hard number because it's probably going to land on 7. But yeah, the Niners should bounce back. They're a good football team. They got some injuries, but against the Jets, that's always a feel-good opponent to come back and get back in your winning ways.
Bucks are laying 8.5 against the Carolina Panthers. Another big number there. Is Tampa Bay going to be ready for an offensive showcase, or is this a dangerous one if you are taking Tampa Bay?
Yeah, again, another one that I would. These big numbers are so hard. I mean, because you don't, this in my mind is one of those overreactions. And I think Bridgewater, he can get the ball down the field. I think he can make some big plays. I don't know if I'd take 9 for Tampa. Tampa hasn't proved that they can put anything together just yet. But I think Tampa wins this game. I think Carolina gives them much more of a matchup than what they're giving them here. I think, if anything, I would probably take the over. The line's only at 47.5. I think both these teams can score. There's Tampa at home. If Tampa gets going, they will score. They might score 48 points. But Carolina, Teddy Bridgewater likes to throw the ball down the field. And they got some good options there too. So the only thing I'd say this game is probably the over.
Yeah. DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, let's go. Cardinals, Washington. The Arizona Cardinals are a 6.5-point favorite at home against the Washington football team. Big win last week for Arizona. So I'm curious to see how they're handling what was a very successful debut of the 2020 season.
This is my bet of the week. I would take the Cardinals all day long. I think that with DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray has a weapon he's never had before. And I think the matchup's good here. Now, the matchup was horrible last week. Washington had a huge win last week against a decimated Eagles offensive line. And Washington's always going to be good up front. They are so talented, probably one of the better D-lines in the league. It's going to get overlooked because they're not going to be very good. But I would say that a D-line like that against Kyler Murray is the great equalizer. Right. So Murray being able to move around is going to help their O-line so much. He doesn't get tackled or sacked very much. He's going to be able to make some plays, and he has some weapons. And Washington on the back end, first of all, their offense isn't very good at all. Yeah. And the back end of their defense isn't very good. And in Arizona, that's where they match up pretty well. So I think Arizona beats them going away. I would bet Arizona at 7 all day long. I think they're good. I think that they will come out and do some things. They're at home. I think Washington, I'm not saying their win was a fluke. I think their win might be a little bit of a fluke. I don't think their D-line's a fluke. But I think this is a tough matchup for Washington because a running quarterback, oh man, that just carves up the back end of a bad defense.
The Chargers and your Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers are the home team. Chiefs are an 8.5-point favorite in this one. I know it's a lot of points again. Both teams are 1-0. Somehow the Chargers won. But I mean, I think the Chiefs win this one. Bober, personally, for me, I'm not touching this game because I could see it being very high scoring. Anything early in the season that's over a touchdown, I'm not always very confident or comfortable in doing so. But I mean, if you said, hey, you got to take one or the other, I guess I would take the Chiefs laying the points, but this is not one I would put into play, just personally.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I would have got the points at 5.5. That'd have been a lot
Yeah.
more likely. But now it's at 8.5. Anything over a touchdown is hard. The Chiefs have. I know. Obviously, I go to a lot of Chiefs games. I watch them all the time. They get up a lot and maybe let teams back in it at the end, right? So it wouldn't take much for a desperation shot with 10 seconds left to score a touchdown
Yeah.
and take it down to a 6 or 7 point game that totally takes you out of the money. So I actually think that'll be what it'll be. I would also I don't think this is going to be a high scoring game for both teams. I think the Chiefs will score enough to win. I think they're trying to set a precedent of running the ball, so it's not going to be a run and gun battle. And I don't think LA can score that many points. So the unders came down quite a bit, but I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I mean, the Chiefs might score a lot of points. I don't think LA is going to score many.
Yeah.
But I would stay away from this big line. I'd stay away from it too. Although the world champs have about 80% of the money is going on them. So they
Love offense.
Yeah.
The Sunday night game, we mentioned the Texans and the Ravens. We already went over that one. So the Monday night game is Patriots Seahawks. Seattle is laying 3.5, so they are a home favorite. Not having a 12th man, when you think of teams not having fans in the stadium, it's a team like Seattle that seems to be maybe most impacted. But yeah, Seattle is a 3.5-point favorite at home.
Yeah, so we got Seattle Sunday, right? Seattle Sunday night game.
I'm sorry, that's a Sunday night game. My bad.
Yeah. This is a tough matchup too. I would lean more towards Seattle. Honestly, they're playing so well. They're playing at home. The new experiment with Cam, they still have some kinks to work out. But Seattle's more of a complete team than New England is right now. Now, if they play them week 12, 13, 14, we'll see where New England is. But Seattle at 4 points, I think, is a pretty good line. I think they can win this game. It's going to be hard. I don't know. They just haven't had a chance to be together too much and win games at the end with Cam. So Seattle, I think, takes this one. I lean their way in a second. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a very good game, and Belichick will pull something out that we haven't seen yet. I can promise you that. But Seattle is tough. Russell Wilson, they put together a good football team. They're one of my favorites in the NFC.
Monday night game, Raiders-Saints. Raiders are opening up the new stadium. They are a 6-point dog at home against the New Orleans Saints. Saints are 1-0. Raiders are 1-0. So here we go. Here's your Monday night game.
Yeah, and you know what? The Raiders are my underdog of the week. I think they cover this. I think they could beat New Orleans, in all honesty. I think they could beat them. New Orleans had a very emotional game at home against a very hyped matchup. That was huge. And Vegas came out and they were good. Like I don't know if they're Chiefs good yet in the AFC West, but I think the Raiders are a playoff team. They're big up front. They're a tough matchup for New Orleans. The thing I saw with New Orleans that was a little concerning is Drew Brees continues to kind of digress, I think. He's not a guy that kind of at his age is making the bigger plays. He didn't do a lot he didn't have to do a lot. But, he's not going to mess up, but he doesn't have the arm strength to make big-time plays anymore. He can't move around. I think going to Las Vegas is going to be tough for them. I like the Raiders in this game. I like them to cover. I mean, they could even win this game outright, honestly. They have some young talent. I think this is their showcase game where now I think they're going to build this up to try to say, okay, now we have a rival in the AFC West for the Chiefs. But the Raiders are an up-and-coming team. I would say they're my underdog of the week, especially laying 5.5 or 6 points.
The game that I will take as far as take the team that is favored, I got to roll. I was going to go Bills-Dolphins, but going to Miami can be very tough, and it's, at least as far as covering. So I'm not going to take the Bills in this one. I am going to take a little bit bigger point spread, though. I'm taking the Niners, laying the touchdown over what I think is the worst team in the NFL, the New York Jets. So take the Niners, laying the points. And then the one that I'm going to take the underdog in this one, I actually, even though I love the Steelers, I think I like what they're doing. I think that's going to be kind of a defensive battle, even without Von Miller for the Broncos. And the number that I've just recently seen is 7.5 favoring the Steelers. I'll take the Broncos losing that game, but I think it's going to be close. I think it might be decided by a field goal, 3 points, 4 points. So I'll take the Broncos and the 7.5 points.
Yeah, I like that. That's a tough line, and Denver has some talent out there, and it might not be till late when they cover this, but that should be a good matchup there too.
Bober, week 2, man. It starts tonight, the Cleveland-Cincinnati matchup, and then we got a full slate again on Sunday. Can't wait.
Ohio Bowl.
The Ohio Bowl.
Battle
What
of
will
the
Joe
Orange.
Burrow do?
The battle of the Orange. Yeah, I'm excited to see Joe Burrow, see what he can do tonight, and see how Cleveland can mess it up. It's not a great storyline, but at least it's intriguing. You know what I mean? I don't think either of these teams really matter, or they will for a while. But they will be covered, and it is football, which we are very grateful for. So, yeah, this is great. Let's see if our lines hold up, and we're going to keep after it. Fantasy football coming up. I mean, I'm 1-0, right? I'm sticking with all the guys I got. I didn't even make many waiver wires because my guys held so fast. I did get pickup Hines from Indianapolis. As you know, with Marlon Mack going down, I got him as a later in the year. So,
aren't you freaking cool that you're undefeated and I went 0-2? Huh?
Well, Giants Bears, man. We'll maybe have we'll bet over a beer at the bar. You know,
we might have to do that.
Loser has to buy the Browns all night long.
Yeah, it's a case of Busch Light coming your way.
There you go. Well, like Mahomes. See, Mahomes got like a Coors Light cake.
Yeah.
Coors Light game of cake. I mean,
happy birthday, Patrick.
Yeah, I don't even know if he drinks Coors Light, but if Busch Light wants to make me a cake for my birthday, send it my way. Elkhorn, Nebraska, you know where to find me.
Bober, appreciate you, my man. I can't wait to talk about this next week. We'll do it here in a few days.
All right, man. Have a great weekend.
You too.